Hello everyone, this video we're going to cover if statements. If statements are fantastic. You're going to love them. So, if. So, as it kind of hints at, if some condition, do this thing, right? That's the basics of an if statement. There are if-else statements and there are else blocks of an if statement. So, if it matches this condition, we do this thing, else we do this other thing. Or if we meet this condition, do this thing. If we meet this other condition, do this thing, else do this. So let's see if we can look at that in code and make it make more sense, huh? Okay, so the condition that we're going to check can vary significantly, of course, but we'll start out simple. Let's do if 1 is greater than 0, let's say cout yes. Okay, so what's going on here? The if starts the if statement, then you have a parentheses, and then what's in the parentheses must return some sort of true or false value. And in C++, I believe it works as anything with I think it's greater than 0 equals true or a false. I can't quite remember. Let's play with that. But for now, let's start with this, and we'll get to that later in the video. So 1 is greater than 0, so we should see a yes here. Agreed? Agreed. Let's compile and execute. Yes, we see a wonderful statement, just as we suggested. So let's do the next part, which would be an else. Well, one of the next things you could do. And the way that these parentheses are on different lines is a convention. Some people prefer them to be on one line, like this. So notice that the curly bracket here has been pushed down to there, and so on. That's due to the formatter. And so generally speaking, you want to stick to the convention in the code base you're using. If you're writing your own code base and you're doing it on your own, you choose whatever you like. If you're working with others, though, you want to coordinate, because having a mix is kind of a pain. So it's something you should agree on. So let's continue here. Let's say nope. And this will just show that if this condition is true, some true condition, then we do this. If not, then we do that. Okay, so pretty straightforward. So of course this will always be true. So let's say, oh, I guess we could have just added the negative. So if negative 1 is greater than 0, which should be false. Let's see, what do we get? Nope, that is correct. So you get the general idea here. So this condition must be some form of true-false, right? So what are some other true or false types of things? Let's use a string as a check. So let's say if let's do it with a variable. It makes a little more sense. So let's say string name equals Bob. That's a good name. So then we can say something like if name equals Bob, then you say yes. If not, oops, just a quote there. If not, we say nope. So let's check it out. Alright, execute, and yes, Bob does equal Bob. Who would have thought? Alright, now let's say Barbara. How about that? So that shouldn't be the case, right? Of course, compile and execute. Nope. That's right, because it doesn't equal. They are not the same. So equality is something that varies depending on data types, and in languages there's different ways to check for equality. So In the case of a string, this works nicely for strings, and it kind of gives you the behavior you'd expect. So let's test a little something here. So right here we have Bob with a capital B. What if we put Bob with a lowercase b? What do you think we'll get here? Nope. That is correct. Why? Because this is a capital. This is a lowercase. So they're not actually equal. If these are chars, which actually are numeric values, and you counted up those values and then you counted up these values, they would be different. So that's kind of something that's important, because you have to be specific in how you're checking those conditions. Now there's a couple other ways you can actually check for equality with strings. So in this case, this is correct. Correct in the sense that that's what I would expect. So let's add here, and what we're going to do is we're going to do an if-else. And as you can see, it's similar to here, but we add the else after the if, and that will allow us to kind of chain these together. So let's do this. So we'll say name.compare, and we'll do this with lowercase bob. So compare is a built-in string comparison that will compare the two here. Oh, what do we got here? Oh, that's why sometimes you look at stuff so long you can't see the obvious stuff right in your face. I had it backwards. It's if. It's the dangers of long bouts of coding. Once you look at things for long enough, it becomes hard to identify your own problems. Okay, so where were we? We are comparing using this comparison rather than the equals here, and let's do this. Yeah, yes, for compare. Oops. Okay, and we'll change this to say yes for equals equals, and we'll just leave the nope. Okay, so what do you think we will get here? So first off, we'll compile, and then I'll kind of talk through here. So what's going on here? So we're saying if this condition is met, then we're going to do this. If it's false and we haven't met that condition, then we're going to go here, and then we're going to check this condition, right? And then if that's true, then we'll do this. If not, if either of these two are false, then we're going to fall back to this one. So one of these three conditions will always be executed. If this is true, this one's first. Then we'll check this one, then that will happen, and then if neither of those work, we'll do this one. Okay, so let's see it in action. Yes, for compare. Okay, so that's weird, right? So with the equals equals, like I said, these are different. They are treated as two different things. But the compare seems to be case insensitive. So it seems to be ignoring the case here. So one more comparison that is something you might run into from time to time. We're going to do using string.h, we're going to do a str comp, which is something that you would use in C, not C++, but it compares the C type of strings, which are arrays of chars. Let's do here name.cstr. If you recall, that's how we do that for C types of strings. So C types of comparisons are expecting C types of strings. C doesn't understand what this string is. It doesn't understand that. Okay, so let's change this here, stir comp, and we will compile again. And what's your expectation? I know mine. Let's check it out. So, as you guessed it, we've already met our condition here, so yes, it will definitely hit that. I was going to change it to something slightly inappropriate. Let's change it to bop. So now it will no longer meet this condition, and then we will get to this condition. Okay, so let's check it here, compile again, and execute. Yes, for compare, it's still doing bop. How is that possible? Very interesting. I would not have expected that. So why, oh why, do we have this compare working? Doesn't seem to be very accurate. Something is fishy here. So let's get rid of this, or we'll cut that out for now just to see the stir comp in action. And let's go here. There we go. So stir comp, I believe, has the same general comparison as the compare itself. They behave in a similar way. But as you saw, this seems to be the most trustworthy of the comparisons here, and I advise this be the one you use in most cases, unless of course you have to use the other methods. But okay, so that's just the gist. It's a very quick crash course of if with a little bit of a string comparison. Check out, there are integer comparisons, Boolean comparisons. Let's do that real quick before we adjourn. We'll do a bool. We'll say TF for true false, so we'll say true. And then we'll just put right here TF. So right now it's set to true. So this should equal true, and that's what we should get. We'll say bool here. Let's go here and there, and yes for bool. Look at what we got. Makes sense, right? So anything within these parentheses, excuse me, basically it will be judged either a true or false value, and then that's what will say, yes, this condition has been met, and we should execute this code. So again, we'll change this, and we will see that behavior change here. There you go, back to this block. Okay, so that's quick crash course there. Hopefully that made some sense and wasn't too confusing, although that compare behavior has me scratching my noodle. Okay, well, thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys on the next vid. See you later.